Shabbat Shalom. I just want to welcome everyone to the Sabbath Day conference call. And this is Barbara serving as your host today. And Brother Pete is here as your co-host.
I'm so glad that y'all could join us today. We have some great material to cover.
Okay, well, this has been one of the objections that maybe you've heard as a Sabbath keeper, or maybe you still keep Saturday Sabbath. Is the Sabbath the seventh day of the week? And does Creation Week prove there is a Sabbath every 7 days? And then Genesis 2, 1 through 3.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And on the seventh day Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he rested from all his work which Elohim created and made.
So because of those verses, which are great verses about the Sabbath, we've had some people have arguments against observing the creation calendar. And these are their objections. Creation Week proves that there is a Sabbath every 7 days. Another one is the sun and moon were created on the 4th day, so there can't be a lunar Sabbath only 3 days later. And another one is the weekly cycle is not dependent on the moon, since the weekly cycle had already started before the moon was created. Well, let's see. What does the Bible say about Creation Week? Let's answer these questions and objections. Genesis 1, 1 to 5.
In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. And Elohim said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good. And Elohim divided the light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And evening and morning were the first day.
So what did Yahweh make on the first day? Light, you say. Well, read verse 1 again. Did you miss the creation event that occurred prior to the creation of light? Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, Elohim created heaven and earth." This was a time-consuming event that took place. Obviously, there were many things created prior to day 1 when light was created. So what was the first thing created? The heavens and the earth. However, Genesis 1:1 does not say, "And the evening and the morning were the blank day," after the first creation event. Why? Because the sun had not yet been lit.
When we read about the first day of creation, Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and the evening and the morning were the first day. What light regulates the day? Is there any light in the universe that does not have a source? It would be ridiculous to say that Yahweh was the light source during day 1, because he is a being of light. On day 1 of Earth's creation week, he didn't create the light that emanates from himself. The light referred to in Genesis 1, 3 through 5, separated light from darkness, creating day and night with 24-hour cycles as a result. The light from Yahweh doesn't do this. The book of Revelation says that where Yahweh is, there is no night. There is only one luminary in the cosmos, as seen from Earth, that can regulate an evening and morning, that can divide light from darkness and cause day and night to come upon the earth. And that is the sun.
Isn't it interesting that after Elohim created light, then and only then was there an evening and morning that made the first day? So how can we have a day as seen from the earth before the sun was created on day 4? Interestingly, there is an evening and morning for the second day of creation and an evening and morning for the third day of creation, all before the sun was made on day 4. Days are regulated by the sun. So how is it possible? The evidence from Scripture reveals that the sun was ignited on day 1. Yahweh created the heaven and the earth on this unnumbered creation event that took place before the first day. Earth was without form and void. On this unnumbered creation event, Yah put into place all the material he would need, and then he advanced upon this material for 6 days before he rested. So Genesis 1:1 would have taken place on day 1. Day 1 is in blue, and it is immediately followed by the creation week. So day 1 of our calendar here is a dark phase of the moon, and it's called New Moon Day. And then you would have 6 working days and then a Sabbath, and the Sabbath is the 7th day there.
I know what you're thinking. I've never heard of such a thing. Scripture doesn't say that, does it? Yes, it does. Not in English, but the underlying Hebrew supports this understanding. The star in our solar system is our major source of light. It is not also rightly said that this star is the only light source that could possibly separate day from night on this earth. So as strange as it sounds, it appears that the other heavenly bodies were created at the same moment that this blob of earth was initially created. This is made evident by the phrases, "In the beginning, Elohim made heavens and the earth." So if Yahweh lit the sun on the first day of creation, therefore creating light and day and night as a result, the proof for such an odd statement is found in the language used in the 4th day creation account. And Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And Elohim made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. Elohim saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the 4th day.
Okay, so this word made is Strong's number 6213, and it's used several times during the creation week. This is the Hebrew word asah, and the Hebrew word bara means something was created from scratch, and asah means advanced upon or appointed, made, like making a bed in the morning. For example, he appointed Asah the moon for seasons, and that's Psalms 104:19. Well, here in the Psalms, David very nearly quotes Genesis 1:14, only he's very specific about the role of the moon. Seasons here in Psalms 104:19 is the same Hebrew word found in Genesis 1:14, Moedim, appointed times or set feast. Here's the scenario. Yahweh created the earth and the other celestial bodies at a certain point in time. He doesn't call it a day because the timepiece that regulates the day was not yet ordained as such. Then on day 1, Yahweh lights the sun, creating light,
and of course, day and night as a result. If the earth and sun were created during the initial event, it is plausible that the planets, moon, etc., were created at the same time as well. We're not wrestling scripture when we make this statement because the underlying Hebrew could have been, and we're suggesting should have been, translated in this way. So, on day 4, Yahweh advanced upon the luminaries that he had created earlier, that he created when he created the heavens and the earth, and then illuminated on day 1, and ordained them, appointing them as timekeepers. The moon rules the week, the Sabbath, that is signs, and the moon the month, that is seasons. The sun rules the day and the year. The moon is listed as having a role in the creation calendar as well as the sun. So the creation calendar is not solar only.
So the Hebrew word translated as signs is oath, Strong's 226, and means a beacon of light of a radio tower or like a lighthouse. And these lights turn on and off just like the moon. And this happens to enter, the moon happens to enter a different phase approximately every 7 days. The sun rises and sets every day, other than being higher or lower on the sky's dome, depending on the season. And it looks the same every day. But the moon, however, is a different story. The moon waxes brighter and brighter each night until it is fully luminous. And when it could be said to be turned fully on, then it wanes until it is fully unilluminated. And so here on the screen, you can see the phases of the moon, how it starts out, the dark phase, and builds to the full, and then the month ends with it being dark again.
The Hebrew word translated in both Genesis 1:14 and Psalm 104:19 as seasons is, of course, moed. That's Strong's 4150, meaning appointed times. The feast days, new moons, and Sabbath are these appointed times. How can we know that these days are ruled by the moon? Well, what day of the sun is it now? Can anyone go out and look at the sun and tell me what day it is? The ancients could tell the days of the week, month, by the moon, and so can we. However, you can't identify the days of the week by the sun alone. It looks the same every day. Interestingly, the moon enters into a different phase approximately every 7 days. So it can and does regulate the Sabbath.
And this chart here will show you on the quarter phases that they are 7 days apart, and there's a Sabbath, the first quarter phase, and then the full moon, then the last quarter, and then back to the dark phase. And they were always originally 7 days apart on the perfect 30-day calendar that Israel received. Okay, day 4. Let's talk about creation on day 4. 3 evenings and mornings, 3 days and 3 nights occurred before day 4. Was the sun and moon created from scratch on the 4th day? Apparently not. Not unless there is another way to regulate a day, because there were 3 evenings and mornings, 3 days and 3 nights that occurred before day 4. And that is 3 witnesses. They were appointed or ordained on day 4.
On the 4th day, Yahweh made 2 great lights. He, asa, that is appointed, advanced upon these luminaries and ordained them as timekeepers. He set their boundaries and he gave them their job description. The moon would be a weekly beacon, signs, and identify the monthly appointed times, seasons. The sun would rule the day and the year. Notice the rule of the month is listed before that of the sun. Thus, Yahweh created a lunar-solar calendar. Pagan Rome in 46 BC, and later the Papal Rome in 1582, eliminated the moon from the calculation of their calendar, creating a solar-only calendar.
So the moon as a timekeeper is not predicated upon the existence of man. It was keeping time before man was created. 8 days after initial creation event, Genesis 1:1, Yah ordained the first Sabbath, which was indeed the 7th day of the week, but it was the 8th period or cycle from the initial creation event in Genesis 1:1, again proving that new moon is not a weekday. In Genesis 1:1, darkness, an actual segment of time, preceded day 1 of creation week, and that is to say that the very first day of the very first month in Earth's history was dark, and no light preceded this day. So why should we expect subsequent months to be any different? Now think for a moment. When the second month came around, we had no problem saying that the new moon day was the dark phase of the moon. So what did the first new moon of the first month look like? Well, it was dark too, because the sun was not illuminated until the first work day, day 2 of the month, just as presented here. And notice that with this understanding, the Sabbath is indeed the 7th day of the week, but it is the 8th day of the month. So we're not changing the Sabbath command at all. This is Sabbath reform, not rebellion. The sun tells you that a new day has begun, but the moon tells you which day it is. So have we answered these arguments and objections? Well, first objection was creation week proves that there is a Sabbath every 7 days. Our answer is new moon day is counted as day 1 of each month. New moon day interrupts the 7-day cycle every 4 weeks. The uninterrupted 7-day cycle since creation has been proven false. And yes, the Sabbath is always the 7th day of the week, but it is also the 8th day of the month. And all the Sabbath dates that you can find in Scripture are all the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th dates of the month. So the sun and moon, here's the other objection. We're answering the sun and moon were created on 4th day is your objection, and so there couldn't be a lunar Sabbath 3 days later. Okay, our answer is the sun and moon were appointed, Esah, on day 4. In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. That's in Genesis 1:1. And now from Genesis 2:3, which is a scripture you are bringing to us, and Elohim blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. The Sabbath of creation was the 7th day of the week and the 8th day of the month. So here was the third objection, and this was the last one that we listed. The weekly cycle, you said, is not dependent on the moon, since the weekly cycle had already started before the moon was created. So I'll let Brother Pete read our answer to you.
The weekly cycle is dependent upon the moon. Why would the Creator create a week without first creating a month to put it into? Each month begins with new moon day, as it has since the beginning of time. The ancient calendars were 30 days, and all began with the new moon. The continuous weekly cycle will never synchronize to a month that Scripture alone describes as commencing with the new moon day, then counts 4 weeks in a row, and then starts over with the next new moon day. The mere fact that the new moon day exists every single month is itself the greatest evidence that the ordained weekly cycle is broken every lunation, the demarcation of 29 or through 30 lunar phases that make up a lunar month.
You can see on the calendars over here to the right, on New Moon Day would be your beginning of the month, and there's 6 working days and then a Sabbath. Always 6 working days and a Sabbath. So the pattern established at creation is as follows. The Father commanded us to rest on the 7th day of the week. He never commanded us to rest every 7th day. The only reason Saturday Sabbath keepers believe that we are commanded to rest every 7th day is because the calendar of heaven has been set aside, and they have embraced the calendar of Rome with its repeating without interruption 7-day weeks. So does creation week prove that every 7th day in its succession is, every day in succession is the Sabbath? It does not. It only proves that the Sabbath is the 7th day of each week. No one is debating that Saturday is the 7th day of the modern Roman Gregorian calendar, because it is. The elephant in the room is the discovery that the Roman Julian calendar itself is a fraud and counterfeit of the Creator's original calendar. So you might want to ask, this will be just a little short study, how did we get Saturday Sabbath? I'm sure you're wanting to know, how did we get Saturday Sabbath? And it is a double counterfeit.
Neither Saturday nor Sunday is mentioned anywhere in Scripture for several remarkable reasons. The modern Roman calendar was proactively designed to oppose in all ways the Torah law of Scripture. In AD 325, Emperor Constantine maintained much of what Julius Caesar had legislated in the 1st century BC regarding the full elimination of the moon and its lunar phases for timekeeping. But Constantine is responsible for changing the previous 8-day continuous weekly cycle to that of 7. He then made Sunday the first day of the newly revised week and Saturday the 7th, neither of which had held that position previously on any calendar.
This will give you a look at the Roman Julian calendar. It had an 8-day week, letters A through H. And then Pope Gregory changed the calendar in 1582. And you might be surprised to know that the Roman Gregorian calendar that we have on our walls and in our planners everywhere is only 441 years old. And all the world is using it now, but quite a few countries didn't even accept it till just recently. So, and this is a chart showing what Brother Pete was talking about. The Saturday is only the 7th day of the week by virtue of Emperor Constantine in 321 AD. He venerated the day of the sun, which moves Saturday from its coveted position as the first day of the week to the 7th day of the week. So this chart shows Saturn was day 1 and Sunday was day 2. Constantine moved Sunday to day 1, and we learned this in church school and in college. AD 31 was the first Sunday law. Constantine made Sunday the Sabbath. But we never learned that he moved Saturn from day 1 to day 7 so that the Jews would have a 7th day on their calendar, a 7th day for their worship. Okay, we're almost done. This is the question for you. Did Yahweh change the Sabbath and the calendar of creation? Well, Malachi 3:6, he says, "For I am Yahweh, I change not." So to access more information about the calendar, about the uninterrupted days since creation, that has been proven false, and also the double counterfeit about Sunday and Saturday. All of this, you can go to our website and access a lot more information about this. We have articles and videos, and the website is lunarsabbathday.com. So thank you for being here today, and please like if this is a blessing to you, and please share it with your friends that love Yeshua.